Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we're sitting down to discuss some good financial news at Celtic Football Club as a wee bit of extra money has turned up at the door of Celtic Park ahead of the summer transfer window. That, alongside some other stuff, a weekend in which Celtic can secure a fourth consecutive league title, on our way to a treble, and it's winding up all the right people as always. So stick around and we're going to talk about that. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. We're about to cross the 49,000 subscriber mark any day now, so go down there, hit both those buttons. It's absolutely free. Some good news to start off today's video before we look at some fun and controversial words about Celtic's potential treble this season. Here were the headlines this morning coming out from UEFA that Celtic are set to rake in more than double the amount Rangers will from the UEFA national team exploits. 13 Scottish clubs have earned a cash boost. 11 top flight sides have benefited from the scheme, which rewards clubs for releasing their players for international competitions. And the exact details go on to say that a total of £2.4 million has been awarded to 13 Scottish football clubs for releasing their players to national team competitions, and Celtic will take away the biggest chunk of that UEFA initiative reward with £882,958. So Celtic set to rake up close to another £1 million before the summer transfer window, simply for allowing their players to go on international duty these past couple of years. Of course, not a substantial sum of money in regards to football, which pennies nowadays. It barely signs you a player at Celtic's level, but nonetheless a cash boost that is more than welcomed, and obviously good for the Scottish game to see an influx of money. To cut a long story short, this is the money that Celtic will receive for allowing their international players to compete at not only Euro 2024, but the Nations League matches that came in the last couple years. Of course, Celtic and clubs all over Europe give their players up for numerous weeks over the season and risk injury and whatnot, so this is the small reward you get for allowing that to happen. The good news is Celtic receiving basically double what Rangers will. Here is the list in its entirety. Celtic at the top of it with £882,000, almost £883,000, just short of £1 million. Rangers in second with £433,000. So despite it not being a substantial sum of money that I've already said, still double what our rivals get, and every little helps. You know, you want to stay ahead financially in every way, whether that's winning league titles and getting prize money, qualifying for the Champions League and getting prize money, but by producing the more international players, that's what you want to see. Just to clarify, this doesn't only apply to Celtic players going on international duty with Scotland, it applies to every country in Europe. So for example, Kasper Schmeichel going on international duty with the Danish national team, so on and so forth. It's every nation in Europe. Scotland getting a very small amount, as you can imagine, compared to Italy, France, England, Germany, etc. This was a line in the Daily Record article that said the likes of the Premier League will get 40 million compared to the 2 million that the Scottish Premiership, or the Scottish football leagues I should say, will receive. Serie A with 30 million, but it does trickle down as low as the English 10th division, who receives £7,000. So at least we're getting a wee bit more money than them, which actually does surprise me considering how the money goes to England usually. UEFA President Alexander Seferin said it's fantastic to see clubs of all sizes and levels across the entire football pyramid receiving financial rewards for their vital role in contributing players who contribute to the success of our national team competitions. Every success of our competitions is a shared one, and this benefits programme is another testament to that principle, recognising the dedication of those who work tirelessly to make European football the greatest sport in the world. When football thrives, everyone benefits. So yeah, a wee bit more money for Scotland would be appreciated, Alexander. We would like more. We're suffering here, Chief. But Celtic making double the amount Rangers is, I like that. Talking about European talent, Celtic had one earlier this season which we let go in January, that being Alex Valle, who was on loan from Barcelona. The left back who was here for the first half of the season left after we signed Jeffrey Schlupp and announced Kieran Tierney's return, and it feels like a lifetime ago, to say the least. It does, honestly. I really liked Alex Valle. I thought he looked like a good player, but ultimately didn't look as though he offered too much of an upgrade on Greg Taylor with his very little time that he had, and one that I wasn't too bothered about when we let go. However, there was a portion of the Celtic support who said, I can't believe it, I can't believe we're letting Alex Valle go, he could be the next big thing, he could be Celtic's next left back. Well, it looks as though he might be getting a big move next season, because reports online and in the Daily Record's print edition yesterday are suggesting that Borussia Dortmund have reportedly made an inquiry to Barcelona to sign the former Celtic player. Of course, he is on loan with Como at the minute in Serie A. That's who he left Celtic to go on loan to. He's been playing under Cesc Fabregas in Serie A. He's been pretty impressive, a consistent performer in the words of the Como manager. But looks as though he could be attracting the attention of one of Europe's biggest clubs in Borussia Dortmund for a 5 million fee, which we all knew existed. One of the things we learned very early days about Alex Valle when he came to Celtic on loan was that we would have the opportunity to sign him permanently the following season, because Barcelona did in fact put a release clause in his contract that was very affordable. And now Borussia Dortmund, among many other suitors perhaps, are looking at triggering that fee. So it's safe to say this is somebody who won't be returning to Celtic anytime soon, I don't think. If he's attracting the likes of Borussia Dortmund and clubs of that size, I'm pretty sure we know where he'll be going next. I never expected to see him back at Celtic anyway. I'm not saying that was the case, but fair play to him. He's went away, he's worked hard, he's kept going, and he didn't let his kind of start and stop run at Celtic get the better of him. He's playing well at Como, and he's got a lot of room for improvement. So keep an eye on that one. Very interesting to see. It feels, as I said, a lifetime ago. Right, so I wanted to finish today's video with a bit of a rant that seems like a common occurrence on this channel and within Celtic fans in general. We seem to have this same discussion every year, and it is surrounding the utter jealousy and critical nature that surrounds Celtic whenever they are about to win a treble. Non-Celtic fans, the media, journalists, so on and so forth, like to constantly remind us that it must be boring to be a Celtic fan. And I want to make one thing perfectly clear. I'm talking about this on this channel because it's my job. Because I need to talk about things like this. And if I didn't, then I wouldn't be doing my job well enough. But I, as a Celtic supporter, don't let these things bother me. I don't log off tonight after I've recorded and think about this, and none of you should let these sorts of opinions bother you, because at the end of the day, we're all Celtic supporters, we're all having a great time with it, and we're all enjoying our trophies. Whether it's 1 trophy, 2 trophies, or 3 trophies a year, we are loving it, and we don't let anybody take that away from us. But I read an article today that made me piss my pants, and I'm just going to call it how it is. Some of the most ludicrous journalism I think I've seen in quite a while. Sorry for the relentless Jet2 holidays advertisements at the side of this article. I promise that's not placed there by me. But the Daily Mail published this article today with the headline, "Sorry Brendan, but this is going to be the most tedious treble of all time." And I mean, you can tell by the title of the article what we're discussing here and what the subject of the article is. How does he keep his players, himself, motivated for next season when the team's stranglehold on Scottish football has made everything so predictable? They will start this season next year, favourites to win another treble, and the current lack of competition and jeopardy is surely not healthy for the game. Now, I'm not saying that things are perfect in Scotland. I'm not saying that the lack of competition is good for Scottish football. But the problem I have is with calling trebles tedious, especially when Celtic are the first ones under a magnifying glass when things go wrong. When Celtic aren't on track to winning a treble, the media are all over it, piling the pressure on whoever the Celtic manager is, piling the pressure on the players and the fans. But now when we're winning trebles, it seems to be the same story. Now, let me make one thing crystal clear. I'm not trying to come for a specific journalist here. I'm not trying to highlight one specific article so that they're on the receiving end of any criticism or abuse or anything like that. But these are the sorts of things that before you publish, you should think really hard about. And if it is your opinion, fair enough. You're entitled to one. But some of the writing in this, I just find completely bewildering. And quite frankly, I don't know, use the word offensive, but to diminish the achievements of an entire football club, and in particular a manager who has worked his entire career for moments like this, worked to a point that some managers could only dream of, to then diminish all of that and call it, uninspiring and boring, I think that's a real cheek. I think it's a bit disrespectful. If you think it's as easy, you can try and step up and do it yourself. There is a pathway into coaching. You can do your badges. You can try and work your way to the top. To completely diminish a manager's achievements because you yourself are bored of one particular team winning, we can always kind of guess where those opinions are coming from. But if you scroll down the article, before people start falling over themselves to mention Rodgers in the same breath as iconic figures as Steen, a degree of context and perspective is required. First of all, I've done my research into who's writing this article. They're not a Celtic supporter, right? I'm not going to speculate which team they support because I don't have any evidence of that. I'm not going to call them a Rangers supporter because I can't prove that. I don't think they are. I don't think it matters because this is the opinion that comes with most non-Celtic fans, no matter what team they support. No Celtic fan is throwing Brendan Rodgers' name in the mix with Jock Stein. Not one. I have never in my life. So first of all, you're starting a point in this article. This is about halfway through, by the way, which is totally fictionalised. It's been made up. No Celtic fan has uttered Brendan Rodgers' name in the same breath as Jock Stein ever. And no one dare would. Because why? Because no Celtic manager's got close to that, and nobody will. Jock Stein is immortal. He is in a wing of immortality that no Celtic manager will ever follow up on. Jock Stein is a manager who won 9 in a row by himself. Jock Stein is a manager who won a treble for the first time in the club's history. Jock Stein is a manager who won a quintuple. And Jock Stein is ultimately the only Celtic manager who will ever win the European Cup. Nobody in serious vein is uttering Brendan Rodgers' name in the same breath as Jock Stein. So this context and perspective that is required, I don't know where you're finding it or needing to find it, because nobody, and I'm Brendan Rodgers' biggest fan, nobody is saying that. Because in truth, this is shaping up to be one of the most boring and uninspiring trebles any team has ever accomplished. If that sounds harsh or misplaced, consider this. In 4 Old Firm matches against Rangers this season, Celtic have only won once in 90 minutes. Where is the relevance? I get the point you're trying to achieve here, right? I understand that Celtic could win a treble, potentially with losing to Rangers 3 times in one season. That is not a level of a standard that you should set Celtic to hold their treble against them. It's not Celtic's fault that Rangers can pull it out on the big occasions and can't pull it out against Dundee or St Johnstone or Hibs or Hearts or whoever else they've dropped points against this season. That's not Celtic's fault. To call it boring and uninspiring comes completely from the point of view of someone who is not there to experience it. Trebles historically solid to win. Brendan Rodgers has made it the norm. You could say effectively by himself. Boring and uninspiring when a club is about to win a treble is something that should be applauded and admired. But we are in the only country, and I will die on this hill as someone who has a degree in journalism. I went to do this. I am technically a journalist. And I've done this channel all by myself for the last 10 years, self-employed. I've wrote articles. I've done podcasts. I've appeared on TV networks and radios and whatever. We're the only country on earth where we have a herd of journalists who are ready to jump at any given moment to put down the accomplishments of a football club. And in particular, for the last decade, Celtic Football Club. We're the only country. And that's not a Celtic victim mentality. This would happen if it was Rangers. This would happen if it was Aberdeen. This would happen if it was Hearts. We are so quick to do it. We're never there to applaud or admire. We're always there to critic, and we're always there to put down. And it's a Scotland problem, and it always will be and always has been. And if this is how we talk about trebles and success and inspiration in this country, I don't see what the point is, and I don't see why these articles go to print. It would be utterly ignorant of me to sit here and pretend that Celtic's treble this year hasn't been as emphatic as perhaps the invincible treble of 2017, of Ange Postecoglou's treble of 2023. It would be stupid of me to sit here and say that this treble has lived up to the same gusto as them, because it hasn't. I know that. But to call it boring and uninspiring when Brendan Rodgers is on the cusp of becoming the first manager at Celtic, the first manager in this club's history to win 3 trebles, that's how we celebrate it. That's how we give him his flowers, by calling it boring and uninspiring. I would love to see you say that to the face of the man. I know why these articles get to print. For people like me to talk about it, for fans to react to it, and to ultimately get you your clicks. I know why. I'm not going to play daft, and maybe I'm the problem for rising to it. You go to the press conference and you say it to Brendan Rodgers' face. Have the balls to do it. I dare you, because you don't have them. And I can't help but feel this has been written with a complete misunderstanding of the current Celtic team we're witnessing, and the current view of the Celtic supporters. First of all, we had the line that said that Celtic supporters are going to put Jock Stein's, Brendan Rodgers' name in the same vein as Jock Stein. But then we've also got a line here. Could anybody seriously argue this Celtic team is one of the finest in the club's history to win the treble? No, it's not even the best Celtic team of the 2 Rodgers eras. Says who? Yourself. Because I would sit here and say that perhaps this is the best Celtic team of Brendan Rodgers' eras. I don't remember the first Brendan Rodgers side going to the knockout stages of the Champions League. I don't remember the Brendan Rodgers side of 2016-17 getting 3 wins in the Champions League. I don't remember them winning a single game, in fact. I don't remember them being seconds away from beating Bayern Munich at the Allianz to force extra time in the knockout stages. It was a great Celtic team, arguably my favourite ever year being a Celtic fan. But who are you to say definitively that team was better than this, when I think that you could sit down, try and do a combined 11 and end up with more of this team's players in it? So who's saying that? Yourself. I feel that this article has been written with a complete lack of understanding of Celtic Football Club, and yet it's made its way to the main pages of the Daily Mail. I urge you to, I don't urge you to read it, because I think it would give you a sore head. I have read the article 2 or 3 times now, and every time I have left myself feeling depressed at the end of it, not because of any of the points standing in any truth, but because of the utter negativity that it's been approached with. It is such a bleak and dire way to look at things in relation to Scottish football and Celtic Football Club. And there is points that I can get on board with, but it's not Celtic's duty or responsibility to fix Scottish football. No, it's not. And some of this, trying to pitch moves for every Celtic player, Greg Taylor, Rio Hitati, Alistair Johnson, talking about how they must be bored themselves. How are you one that's qualified to speak about these players when we constantly have Alistair Johnson, Dyson Maeda, for example, coming out and talking about how much they love it here, signing 4- and 5-year contracts? Dyson Maeda's reportedly on the verge of signing another. Who are you that's on the verge? Who are you to say these things when they're on the verge of extending their stays here? You don't live in the minds of these players. You don't live in the mind of Celtic supporters. And if the rest of Scottish football can't get used to Celtic winning, then, maybe there was a lot done wrong along the way that wasn't Celtic's fault. Celtic are not the ones that should be victimised and critiqued and as drawn up as the negative when the authorities in Scottish football, the opposition in Scottish football, haven't done the things that Celtic done. Celtic shouldn't be punished for conducting themselves in a professional and winning manner for the last 25 years, while other clubs were spending money they didn't have, while league officials and rule makers weren't doing the best things, and the best interest of Scottish football, when TV broadcasters weren't doing the right things for the benefit of Scottish football? Why should Celtic, the only one who have made the right decisions for the past 25 years for the sake of their own football club, why should they constantly be the ones in these articles being lambasted and being told that their accomplishments are diminished? You answer me that question, please. Anyway, rant over. There's a lot more I could say and a lot more I want to say. But I'm sure this conversation's going to come up many, many times over the next few years. So I'll leave you with that, some food for thought. If you've enjoyed today's video, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. And I'll see you all on the flip side tomorrow when we talk about Celtic in a much more positive note.